As Julia Gillard contemplates the difficult circumstances in which she will seek to claim her place in Australian political history, British Labor's most successful Prime Minister Tony Blair is seeking to protect his place in history with the release of his long-awaited memoir. His 10 years as Prime Minister encompassed an ambitious reform agenda under the banner of New Labour in partnership with the brilliant but prickly Gordon Brown, who Blair had outmanoeuvred for the leadership. Their partnership was at the heart of Labor's success, but as it soured, so did the government's affair with the British people. It was Tony Blair's decision to align himself closely to US President George W. Bush in the Iraq invasion after the 9/11 attacks and the fruitless hunt for weapons of mass destruction that weren't there that wore down his popularity at home. These days, the former Prime Minister spends more time out of Britain than in it as a special envoy to the Middle East, and in fact was at the White House last week for the latest peace talks with Israeli and Palestinian leaders. I recorded this wide-ranging interview with Tony Blair by satellite to London last night. Tony Blair, we might dive in at the deep end and start with the Middle East since the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks have just begun again in Washington, and you were there last week. The deadline for an outcome to these talks is a year from now. What are the odds that a workable deal can be struck?
Well, it's a big challenge, obviously, but it's possible. The atmospherics at the White House last week between President Abbas and Prime Minister Netanyahu were very good. Perhaps as important as anything else, President Obama at our dinner really made it clear his own personal determination and commitment to reach an agreement. And the truth is, the issues are well canvassed and well known. So I think provided we can make the changes on the ground that help support the political process, and that's the thing I'm really working on, then I think, you know, we've got a chance. Put it like that, we've got a chance, and this may be our last chance to do it, so we should take it.
You must be incredibly conscious that the whole process could be derailed even before the end of the month. When Israel's moratorium on settlement construction on the West Bank ends on that September 26th, the Palestinians have said if construction begins again, the talks will end. Benjamin Netanyahu says if that happens, it'll be because the Palestinians aren't serious about the agreement. So that's the first challenge, isn't it?
It's the first challenge, and we're going to work hard to overcome it. I mean, look, the important thing is that nothing is done that inhibits the creation of a Palestinian state and that presumes an outcome to the negotiation before we get the negotiation completed. So that's what we're trying to work with. And what is important, obviously, is that we get into the detail of the negotiations. So let's hope we can get over this issue to do with the moratorium on settlements and get on with the process.
On Iraq, even out of office, you continue to be pilloried at home for committing Britain to the Iraq war. I'm sure in many ways you're used to it by now. You must have a very thick skin on it. But largely on the basis of faulty or overcooked intelligence, as it was perceived to be by many, that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, and the pelting at your book signing in Dublin last Saturday can't have been pleasant. But you still say today you don't regret going in. If the justification is so clear and strong, why has it damaged you so much?
Because, you know, when you go to war, it's a massively controversial thing. Incidentally, one thing I should just make clear, I mean, in Dublin, you know, there were protesters, some are Stop the War people, some actually dissident Republicans opposed to the peace deal. They were far outnumbered by the people who actually turned up to get the book signed and were very supportive and decent. So, you know, one's got to be careful, actually, of putting too much emphasis on the people that throw things. They're not, in my experience, representative of the whole population. But, yeah, it's a hugely controversial decision. And, you know, we live with this controversy in a sense still because you've got the very active issue of Iran coming up. What do you do about Iran and its potential for nuclear weapons capability? And as I try and explain in the book, you know, my view is that post-September the 11th, the whole calculus of risk changed, and that we could not afford to take risks with unstable regimes that might develop nuclear, chemical or biological weapons capability. The reason we went after Saddam was that he'd used the weapons against his own people and in the Iran-Iraq war where there were 1 million casualties. So, you know, it's a debate that'll carry on, and there will continue to be people who feel very strongly about it. My actual sense of the public, to be honest, is that they understand it was a complex and difficult decision. And I think there's a lot more understanding in the public than there is, obviously, with the people who will throw stuff out.
I'll come to Iran, back to Iran in a minute, but a very highly credentialed Australian intelligence analyst and senior weapons inspector named Rod Barton, who had 13 years of experience hunting weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He was also a special advisor to the CIA's Iraq survey group that you've mentioned yourself a number of times, the group that found no weapons. Now, Rod Barton, very highly respected in his field, has said that the survey group process was dishonest and attempted to cover up the truth that there were no weapons. Doesn't that suggest